And here we are, Batman the Caped Crusader is finally here with us. I decided to wait a little before making my review of the episodes here in the channel because I wanted to watch all the 10 stories and let them sink in for me in order to actually think about what I liked, what I disliked, what were my favorite episodes, what were my least favorite episodes. So let's go. Let me talk first about my general opinion of the whole series. It's good. It's very good. The screenwriting aspects of all the episodes is fabulous. Very adult show, very mature, filled with action, adventure, but also very heavy stuff like deaths all around. People die in this show for real, and there's no sugarcoating in terms of showing these people dying. Of course, we don't see blood or gore, but we know that people are shot, drowned, stabbed. Anyway, people just die. And it's pretty clear that this is something that Bruce Timm, the creator of this show and Batman the Animated Series, the classic animation, this was something that he wanted to do since that show, but he couldn't because of ratings and for being a kids show. Now here he has total freedom to be very adult and very extreme with the narratives, calling great writers of comic books and animations in general to craft these great stories for these 10 first episodes. And there is a very interesting mix of styles of stories that vary from very grounded, dealing with police corruption in general in Gotham City, in a way that is very Nolan and Matt Reeves styles of stories with the character. But we also have supernatural episodes that deal with extreme fantastical elements and villains. So this is a mix that I really appreciated, even though I don't think they really jive completely in this show. I think this was done better in Batman the Animated Series. There, the fantastical and the grounded jived much better. But this is just in terms of tone, because the story themselves were very well crafted, in my opinion. So in general, it's a very solid animation I really liked and had a lot of fun watching the episodes, but there are some problems, of course. This is something that was said in the past about the fact that this show was not picked up by HBO and Warner Brothers and was given to Amazon Prime. So there was a little less investment from David Zaslav and Warner in the animation. And this is something that is pretty noticeable because I think the animation style, it's okay, but not great. In fact, some episodes or some shots are very stiff or very average in general. It lacks the texture and the shadows that were in Batman the Animated Series 30 years ago, basically. And there are many shots spread across the animation that I think are very uninspired and missing some texture, you know? I can remember a pretty good example that is in the episode 2 with the villain Clayface, that we have a scene with Batman finding these two corpses under floor, and their faces are shown with this very extreme expression. There's even a bug crawling out of one of the guy's mouths. And this is a scene that required a little more texture, a little more shadow to make the whole thing a little more eerie. And it looks very bland, so it causes this strange feeling of looking at something that's supposed to be very shocking, but is just not. And I say this because I truly believe that Batman the Animated Series, the classic one, had this great framing and shots and of course shadows to really create these textures in the scenarios, in the characters. So I think this was really missing here. Another aspect that I'm not sure if I really liked was, believe it or not, the voice of Batman by the actor Hamish Linklater. I think his voice as Bruce Wayne is really good. I think it really fits the aesthetics of the 60s that the show has, but his voice as Batman, I'm not so sure. I'm a little iffy. Maybe I'm too used to Kevin Conroy's voice, so I feel that this persona of the character is missing its natural power with the voice that has to be convened in the interpretation. And another thing that is not exactly a complaint, because I understand that it's part of an arc of the character Batman. During the show, he has this character arc that has some similarities with Robert Pattinson's Batman. That is the idea that he's completely off and disconnected of any emotional connection. And he has these very strong personas to deal with the crime in Gotham. So he has Bruce Wayne, the guy that is the billionaire, that is always in parties and reckless rich guy, and of course Batman, that is the selfless protector. But what he doesn't have yet is this human side that he hides very deeply. So even with his most precious friend in life, that is Alfred, he's very rude and distant. At first, of course. He doesn't even call Alfred Alfred, he calls him Pennyworth all the time. And even though this is the arc they chose to represent in the show, it causes a kind of blocking, at least for me, that makes the character inaccessible as well. And I like to explain this with the example of Christian Bale's Batman that has three personas actually. The billionaire reckless, that is a mask, Batman, that is also a mask, or maybe his true self, but he also has the caring human Bruce Wayne that he only shows for the closest people like Alfred and Rachel. And it's through this third persona that we are able to access the character and be on his side during his story. If we don't have this, like the character here in Batman the Caped Crusader, he becomes this kind of an asshole in my opinion. But again, this is something that is developed during the series, so little by little he starts to access this third and more human side. But it takes a long time, and during the show itself I felt very distant from Batman. So anyway, but this is just my general opinion, so let's talk briefly about each episode. The first episode, In Treacherous Waters, is the introduction of the whole show and some of the characters, including a new version of the Penguin, a female penguin, Oswalda Cobblepot. I liked the episode, I thought it was a good introduction. I didn't care for the female penguin, I thought it was interesting to see another version of the character that is a ruthless crime boss. It has many great moments, and I think it ends up being the weakest of the show so far, but not by its fault, because it's the first episode, so there are a lot of things to introduce and establish before we move on. Then we go to the second episode that has the character Clayface and Be a Villain, and introduces not only the villain but also a new version of the character Renee Montoya, that is a very important character during the show and also a very important part of the police force. And this one is probably one of my favorites of this season because it has this vibe of investigation and old classic horror movies from the Universal. So it deals a lot with the old studio system of movies and productions. The character Basil Carlo, the Clayface in this version, is basically a classic Universal monster in the vibes of Frankenstein or the Wolfman or all those guys. So I really loved the episode, and I love to see Batman facing some kind of monster. We even have him sword fighting with Clayface here, so it's just very cool. And this is just a theory of mine, but there are rumors that the villain of the next Batman movie with Robert Pattinson is Clayface, so is this maybe a tease of what we may see in the future? At least in terms of a character that is a master of disguise? Let's see. And then it comes the episode Keys of the Catwoman. And yes, we have the introduction of Catwoman in this universe. It's a good episode, not one of my favorites, but I did like the character Catwoman here. I really like the fact that I think they nailed what I prefer in terms of a Catwoman version, that is, the fact that she's a criminal, no matter what. And she is someone that Batman cannot trust, but that he is attracted to. I also liked the fact that she's just a girl who gets fascinated by Batman and creates a persona for herself, including building a car, a Catmobile, you may call it. And that tone of story kinda reminds me Batman the Brave and the Bold. And they are actually very similar in terms of look. So, episode 4, The Night of the Hunters, is probably one of my favorite ones. And this is very unusual because usually I tend to be more attracted to the fantastical side of Batman. But in this show, believe it or not, 2 of my favorite episodes go to the more grounded side of Batman, including this one that has a very Batman Year One kind of plot, with the police force being tasked by the mayor to hunt Batman. But because of corrupt cops like Bullock, Flash, and the apparition of Firebug, that is not Firefly in this version. The good cops like Commissioner Gordon, Barbara Gordon, and Renee Montoya end up having their hands tied in how to deal with the crime in the city. And this is where Gordon has a first glimpse of Batman's true intentions in his CAPED CRUSADER journey. In fact, there is this amazing scene, very well crafted and very beautiful, where Gordon points his gun to Batman to arrest him, but when Batman turns to him, he has two children in his hands that he's trying to save from a fire that Firebug caused in a building. And this is a perfect move of storytelling, in my opinion, that without too many words, just showing with an image, you can create a striking moment that will change some character's perspective forever. It's a great episode with a great script, and it's also very frustrating because we are on the side of the good cops like Montoya, Barbara Gordon, and the Commissioner. But because they have to obey the law, other characters like Bullock, that in this version is a big asshole, and other corrupt cops can get away with stuff because the whole system is dirty. Great episode, great episode. Episode 5, The Stress of Her Regard, we go to Harley Quinn finally in the show. She was being developed during the episodes as this very interesting character that is a psychologist, and she actually has consultations with Bruce Wayne, even though she can't crack or break the barriers that he creates for his persona, therefore she can't discover who he really is. This is the episode that really focus on her. We see her friendship with Barbara Gordon, a romance with Renee Montoya, but we also discover that she's a very particular kind of criminal. In fact, she's almost a vigilante that punishes rich guys of Gotham City, and by using her tactics as a psychologist, she forces them to give their money to charity organizations of the city, and she also has this lair underneath her house that is a very serial killer kind of thing, even though she doesn't kill anyone. And I gotta say, this is a very interesting take on the character, and maybe even more interesting than the original character. I won't lie, I definitely believe this is a stronger version of the character than the one that we always knew. She has an agenda, she has a goal, and she has this double personality that is very interesting. And she's also voiced by Jamie Chung. Oh boy. And it begs the question to see if in the future she will end up with some kind of version of the Joker like the classic one. But this is something we can talk later. Episode 6, The Night Ride. This is one of the weakest episodes for me, even though it has an interesting idea of Batman facing ghosts or the supernatural for the first time. We have him facing the Gentleman Ghost. That is a cool and visually interesting character, and the idea of Batman having to deal with the belief in the supernatural and be forced to open his mind for this idea for the first time in his career is very nice. There's also a little more development in his relationship with Alfred, in that whole idea of how cold he is with Alfred, but I still think this is one of my least favorite episodes. And then we have episode 7, The Moving Target. That is definitely my favorite episode in this show, believe it or not. And like I said before, I was very surprised to see that I really liked the grounded plots of the episodes, especially this one that has a very police-driven story, because we have Jim Gordon being targeted by criminals of the city to be killed by someone they don't know yet. But they have to move with Gordon and find a hiding place for him to protect him. And this takes Montoya, Barbara Gordon, and some other cops in a very tense and suspenseful journey to find this hiding place for Gordon and protect him. During this, Batman has to find out who was the one that gave the order to kill Gordon, and eventually he will fight many hired guns that are trying to get to the man. There are many plot twists, and I thought it was a really cinematic episode in terms of tone and the whole plot. The only thing I didn't like in this episode is the villain onomatopoeia, because the villain itself is very stupid in my opinion, and it doesn't fit really the plot and the grounded nature of the story. This is the kind of villain that should only appear in Batman the Brave and the Bold. Then we have the episode Nocturne, which features the villain Natalia Knight. And again, this is a supernatural plot with the character being this girl who lives in this carnival area, and she has the power of suck the energy of people, almost like a vampire, but actually draining their souls. It's an okay episode. It actually reminded me more of the tone of Batman the Animated Series in terms of the most forgettable episodes of that show. But it does feature a lot of fan service, or at least a lot of cameos that could be or not important in this show from the Batman lore. We have all the Robins appearing in early versions, or maybe they're just references to Robins that existed. I'm not sure if they're going to show up again in the future or being developed as the character Robin. We have Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Carrie Kelly, Stephanie Brown, and they all part of kids being taken care by the Dr. Leslie Tompkins, a great friend of Bruce Wayne. So maybe there's a chance that this character dies in the future and Bruce adopts them, maybe. We also have the quick appearance of Killer Croc, Waylon Jones, in a brief scene. So it's a good episode. It's not a bad episode by any stretch of the imagination, but not one of those that will be more memorable. And then we have basically the only two-parter of this season that are the two episodes, The Killer Inside Me and Savage Night. And this is where we finish the arc of the character Harvey Dent in the show, because he was also a character being developed during the whole season. And I gotta be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Two-Face. He's one of my least favorite villains because I think his arc is always too similar. And I don't think they did something enough different here in the show. I do like some scenes with him, the whole fight inside his mind between the two personas of the character, but it's basically the same old that we've seen many times with Harvey Two-Face. Again, both episodes are not bad. In fact, I truly like the last one, and this is the one that closes many ends of elements that were being developed in the season, especially the trust between Batman and the police force. And we also have this amazing scene in the end that I will spoil if you didn't watch, that we have Batman throwing a batarang in Rupert Thorne, the gangster of this show, through the window of his apartment from another building, and showing up in this classic moment that takes us back to Batman the Animated Series with the lightning behind him. A scene for Batman to show Thorne that he is always watching, and is very badass. It's one of those scenes that you go, yeah! And we also have the end of the arc, or maybe beginning of another arc, of Batman finally calling Alfred instead of Pennyworth, showing that he's starting to open up, which was a very cliché scene in my opinion, and very predictable. And of course we have an extra scene that couldn't be missing, of course, because we never had any mention of Joker in this show, so almost as a post-credit scene from Marvel movies, we have a little scene, very creepy actually, with the hint of the future Joker of the show. So I liked that. And this is Batman the Caped Crusader, in my opinion, of the whole show and also the episodes individually. If I have to make a top 3 episodes that I most liked, I will go with the first one being The Moving Target, second one Night of the Hunters, and third one And Be a Villain with Clayface. So there you go, a very good and solid show. It doesn't reach the heights of Batman the Animated Series or even the Batman from 2004 that I really love, but it's a very good addition to the lore of Batman animated shows. Alright, what about you? What did you think? Comment below, and please, if you are liking the content of BATGUS, don't forget to leave a like in this video and subscribe to the channel for more Bat content in the future. See you in the next Bat video, and bye bye!